Hey everyone, this is Beth, and since I've been talking about ancestors, other than the full moons and the moon readings, wanted to show you a little bit of my process of how I work with things, and that is in my art journal. More often than not, when I'm working on something, I'm going to hit the art journal with it and use that to reinforce the energies or bring them in, expand them out, or simply work through them. Art journaling can be a really easy way to work through emotions, feelings, thoughts that you're not quite sure what you want to do with, how you feel about them. And it can take you from a place of feeling like, I don't get it, to having some form of resolution. The problem or the issue may not be solved, but by the time you're done with your art journaling spread, you've come to some kind of resolution. You've come to some form of finding a path. And for me lately, working with the vulva, the Scandinavian witch, and I'm sure I'm massacring the word, because I can't remember. I'm not really sure how you say the umlaut anymore, and if it's German or Swedish, it also makes a difference. But working with the concept of my ancestress as the witch, as the Scandinavian witch of the vulva energy, which is not vulva like the Latin variation of the female anatomy, but VO umlaut LVA. And so I'm using images that to me evoke that feeling within me, that says to me kind of witchy or little mystical would be a good word, mystical. And mostly just working with things that really speak to me in this one. And since it's in my art journal and it's not going anywhere, I'm not worried about it. Besides the fact that even when I use a reference image this heavy, I'm not trying to go for likeness. I'm just going for my own thing. How it happens, happens. And this is used a couple different techniques here. This one's straight on collage because I wanted her to be my main focal point. I really, really love this picture of that lady. And these are all images by Paolo Roversi. He's a fashion photographer. Does beautiful, beautiful work. And he has a certain quality to his photographs that I really love and were speaking to me. And right here I'm doing an image transfer. Sometimes these work beautifully and sometimes they just are not so awesome. This one turned out okay. And I ended up with a really kind of cool plasticky thing with the image. You can see there I set it aside to let it dry so I can use it later. Image transfers are one of those things where you're like, oh my god, it's so awesome. Or you're like, oh my god, what was that? That's so not happy. They can be a lot of fun to do. I've kind of been on an image transfer kick again. And they can also be frustrating when you have several in a row that fail. I'm working on just bringing in this energy. How can I connect with my female parts of my ancestry, and how do I bring this in? And how do I want to bring it in? I want them to feel empowered. I want them to feel supported in the past, even though they're no longer here. They are energetically still hanging around. They're still energetically about, and I'm interested in working with that energy. So that is really where I'm working on trying to bring this in. How do I connect? So I hit my art journal, and you noticed I started out writing, and a lot of times when I'm cleaning off a palette, I tend to just smush some paint around in the art journal. And so I almost always have some form of background semi-prepared, which really can facilitate going a quick spread of getting somewhere fairly fast and not having to do full backgrounds. So I'd already had paint laid down, and then I wrote on top of what I wanted to work with these, and what I wanted to bring in healing, especially with my female ancestors. And so I started writing, and most of the writing gets covered up. The idea of the writing is not to be able to read it, but to bring in the energies, to bring in the thought forms, and work with them that way. And it can be a really nice way to transform your thoughts. If you're having like a really horrible bad day, writing things down underneath everything and then letting them be transformed into something beautiful. I don't think of it as covering it up. I think of it as I'm going from this spot and I'm changing my mood and I'm creating something beautiful. And in this case, what I'm creating is, how do I bring in my female ancestry? And how do I help it heal? How do I connect to that idea of the Scandinavian witch? So it's several things going on. And this is a crystal heart stencil by Sarah Trump, Wonderstrump. She has the best stencils. Every time I use one, I like plug her. I don't get anything from her. I'm not an affiliate, but she has the best freaking stencils. If you're looking for anything that's kind of witchy, she has like moons and crystal hearts and crystals and swear bears. I won some of her. I entered a drawing and she did, and I won swear bear stencils and fetus stencils. I love the fetus stencils. They have become very symbolic for me of rebirth, of nurturing and growing. And so anytime I feel like I need some of that nurturing growth empress energy, I pull on my fetus stencils and use them. But art journaling is a way you can bring something in, and you can also transform your mood. So you don't have to be working with something like Ancestors like I am here. If you're just having a really bad day, you can do a really quick art page and write down that. And sometimes, you might just end up scribbling. I have one daily practice, daily art thing where I just scribbled. It was a particularly not good day, and that's what I did. I just scribbled out my emotions. So it doesn't have to be anything as complicated as this. It can just be laying down colors. What colors make you happy? Use them. So now I'm laying down more collage. I want to create depth, and one thing you can do with using the image transfers are more flat than using a collage piece. So when you collage something on, you create a little bit of depth to it that you don't get with an image transfer. Into audition things. Don't just like plop them down. Play around with them and see how they work out. Because that can be, sometimes you get it wrong. Sometimes it takes some time and you have to step away from a piece to figure it out. This piece probably took me about a week, 2 weeks, week and a half somewhere to fully finish, because I did at one point have to step away from it because I didn't know what I wanted to do in the background when I got to the ending of it. And I'm a big collage fan, so I tend to use a lot of collage, even if it ends up not showing in the end result. It does create depth, texture, which is fun, and a lot of times it has a subtle influence that you don't know as a viewer that it's there. But yeah, collages, I love collage. I like things that create texture and depth. Collage is one of my favorite things to do. And if you're really insecure about painting faces or doing things like that, like I really struggle with side profiles. And so doing her, the main focal point of the body figure, was nice because it gives me a safe way to figure out how to do a side profile. And that it can be helpful. Plus, everything here is really small, and I have to remember not to get too caught up in the details because it's so small that it's not going to work if you go too detailed. Because a lot of times when it's small, I can get caught up in like trying to get all those details I would do in a larger face, and it just does not work. if you feel yourself assessing, getting kind of crazed over something, step away. Step away or move into a different part of the work. And that can really help you not drive yourself crazy over what you're doing. We're working on one of the image transfers here. I want her to show out. She's a faint transfer. She didn't, partly because there wasn't a lot of dark background. I want to get rid of that hunk of paper. And even if you did absolutely no integration, this is actually looking pretty cool as it is. But I'm going to keep painting. Right now I'm throwing some clear gesso over everyone to help stabilize the surfaces, and it just makes it easier for me to paint on as opposed to working on really slick paper surfaces. It gives me a bit more tooth and things will grab onto it. Trying to make her stand out more. She was fading a little too back as I had gotten my background done. And one thing too, it's like I used some yellow up there, and at one point the top part got way too it was too yellow. So I brought in a little bit of muddy lavendery gray purple, which if you pull out your color wheels are the bomb. Yellow and purple are pretty much complementary colors, so that purple is going to mellow out and mute down the yellow. You could also do it with a gray, but I tend to find I like to try and use a complementary color when I do that. Finishing details in here, trying to decide what I wanted to use. I wanted to write a little text, and frankly the text, by the time I'm done with it, you can't read it. I can't read it, and 2 weeks later I don't know what I wrote. But when I look at this piece, it evokes something for me. It's the emotion that I'm going for, not being able to read what I started with on the second layer or what I'm writing here in this final layer. It's about creating emotion more. So when I look at this, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember how that feeling of how I felt when I created this piece, of trying to find that connection within my female ancestry. Yeah, this point, I have that one image transfer. I'm trying to make her face come back again. And that's about it. Everyone have a wonderful day.